What's up, guys? Welcome back to Newswave. So we know next year the Super Mario movie will be releasing, and there are a lot of questions around this film, especially when it comes to some of the cast, but seems we'll be getting some answers to those questions here pretty soon, as we now have a date when the first audience will be seeing a trailer for it. We'll go over that here today. Also, we are going to be talking about Bungie with some of their latest patents that were discovered that could see Destiny going to a brand new platform, and we're also going to be talking about Cyberpunk 2077. With the release of their latest show, it appears that the game could be seeing a sooner than expected revival. Guys, if you enjoy these videos, make sure that like button helps out a ton, and if you're new here to the Spawnwave channel, make sure you subscribe down below. And we're going to start today with Ubisoft and Splinter Cell Remake. I was very excited when this game was announced. Even though they didn't have anything to show, it was still Ubisoft doing something with Splinter Cell that wasn't just, oh, let's put Sam Fisher in this mobile game. But a job listing has popped up recently that has some people a bit concerned. We can see this posted up by PSU, spotting the job listing where it says, using the first Splinter Cell game as our foundation, we are rewriting and updating the story for a modern day audience. We want to keep the spirit and themes of the original game while exploring our characters and the world to make them more authentic and believable. The modern day audience part and rewriting and updating is clearly what's gotten people very concerned, and we see the knee-jerk reactions around this. It's still pretty vague, and I'm not necessarily on board with just, oh, it's terrible, this is going to be the worst thing ever. I mean, sure, it could end up like the meme where it's like, how do you do, fellow kids? Here's Saints Row, Splinter Cell. Sure, that's very possible that could happen, and I'd be pretty frustrated with that. I'm more or less considering this at this time until we see more, to where they're going back and maybe seeing phrases and things that were said in like 2002 that would make a remake just feel extremely archaic now. Just that's at least my current thoughts around this. But if they go absolutely wild with the Splinter Cell remake and completely rewrite everything and it doesn't feel like Splinter Cell anymore, then we're gonna have a problem, Ubisoft. Also, it does look like Octopath Traveler 2 is right on track for its release in the early part of next year. We can see this posted up over on Nintendo Life, where they say Octopath Traveler 2 is 90% complete, according to Square Enix. In fact, they say they're currently in the last stretch of development. Now, this was translated by Noisy Pixel with the conversation in the studio behind the HD 2D game, and this is expected since they were so quick to give us that release date of February 24th. I mean, it's not too far away here, and they have been knocking it out of the park, by the way, with these HD 2D games. I just feel like it's one after the other after the other. You finish up Live Alive, and boom, there's Octopath Traveler 2 coming out less than a year later. The thing I'm curious with this one, though, is will they have a demo for it? Because Square's been doing that quite a bit with all these different JRPGs and titles they've released. You have some sort of demo, and a lot of times the save data will carry over. But with Octopath Traveler, that first one, they did multiple demos, and most of it was just collecting feedback. But because this is Octopath Traveler 2, do they need feedbacks? And if they don't, will they then not have a demo? I'm hoping they will, just because I would like to see more about this new game, and what better way to do that than hand us a demo maybe a few months before it releases and have our save data carry over. Oh, and speaking of Square Enix, they gave us an update around a title that's actually coming up here pretty soon. I'm looking forward to it, that being Valkyrie Elysium. But take a look at this posted up over on Twitter. They say, as we celebrate the upcoming launch of Valkyrie Elysium, we unfortunately need a bit more time for Valkyrie Profile Lenneth to improve the quality of the title, and have decided to move the release date to December 22nd, 2022. If you had pre-ordered the digital deluxe edition of Valkyrie Elysium, you were going to get just a copy of Valkyrie Profile Lenneth. In this case, though, you'll just have to wait till December 22nd. And it will also go up for purchase separately from Elysium, but now looking at it in December. So unfortunate news there, but at least there'll be Valkyrie Elysium free to play up until Lenneth releases in December. And guys, with some of the quick news out of the way, let's get into the bigger stuff. Let's start right away with this Super Mario movie. As I mentioned, a lot of questions around this film. I have several myself, especially with the cast and how this entire thing is just going to sound. But it seems like we're gonna finally have our first look at it, at least an audience will, at New York Comic Con. We can see this posted up over on Twitter. They say, join us October 6th at 4 p.m. Eastern for the teaser trailer premiere for Nintendo and Illumination's upcoming Super Mario Bros. Film releasing April 7th, 2023. There was some confusion around that, by the way, because it almost appeared at first that New York Comic Con was announcing the release date for the movie itself right here in a tweet. Nintendo actually had shared that with us months and months ago. In fact, it's releasing, 3 weeks later in Japan. So the 7th of April here in the US, and then the 28th in Japan and all this. So looking at this, it's going to be to a select audience at New York Comic Con. I'm sure the line will be out the door, and you'll probably have to almost camp out in order to get a spot here in front of the big screen where they'll be showing the trailer. But most of the time when they first show it at a place like New York Comic Con, a little later on they'll show it off to the world through just a trailer drop on YouTube, Twitter, basically everywhere. So I'm thinking it'll be a week or two after this, but it's going to be hard to keep some of this stuff under wraps. When people see it, they're going to immediately start talking about it online. And a lot of it's going to come back to, how do the characters sound? Chris Pratt is voicing Mario, and that's been the biggest tease right now, is his Mario voice. Chris Pratt has talked about it on different forms of social media about how he has this very unique and distinct voice specifically created for Mario, and people have heard it say it's an interesting voice, and it's apparently going to be a completely different take on Mario than what we've been used to in the past, and that was pretty obvious when they said, oh, Chris Pratt is going to do it. He's really cool. Outside of that, though, you also look at Jack Black as Bowser, which I can kind of picture that one, right? But Seth Rogen as Donkey Kong, that's another interesting case there. And then the plot for the movie. How do you have a movie around Super Mario that is going to last an hour and a half? Maybe 2 hours? Will the plot be enough to carry things along with the dialogue and all this? So a lot of questions here to be answered, and I am genuinely curious as to how this is going to go down. So I'm hoping that trailer, while they'll show it in a couple of weeks at New York Comic Con, will find its way out online sooner rather than later after that October 6th date, because I absolutely have to hear what exactly Chris Pratt as Mario sounds like. Oh, and I'm sure there'll be reactions all over the place when that trailer drops. I might have to bring back Film Wave for a day so that we can sit down and talk about this Super Mario teaser trailer that'll probably be a minute or two long, but the analysis and stuff around this is going to be wild. Next up, let's talk about Bungie and some new patents that were discovered that could actually be alluding to Destiny going to mobile devices like your phone or maybe even the Switch. Let's take a look here, though. This was posted up by the Game Post, and they had pointed out several different patents that are clearly showing touchscreen controls. They say all these Bungie patents feature some sort of virtual controls or controller that players could use on a touchscreen on a mobile device, and one of the patents mentions Destiny and Destiny 2 with the patented technology of virtual controllers. So think about the thumbstick that would be on a touchscreen. You move your thumb around it, you can kind of see it moving there on the screen, and then obviously it will have that effect on the game itself. It appears this is just them patenting some of the technology they would use for it, and that's one of the reasons we could see Destiny or Destiny 2, I assume Destiny 2, or maybe just Destiny Mobile, go to mobile phones. We're seeing this now with a lot of these different publishers and developers just moving some of their larger franchises onto phones. I mean, it's very lucrative. We see Ubisoft doing it with Assassin's Creed. We've seen it with Rainbow Six. Call of Duty made the jump before, so it's not really free money because you have to make the game for it, but it's certainly a market that these larger companies now in gaming, they're just entrenched in console and PC gaming, haven't been able to really take advantage of as much. But now we're seeing phones become very, very capable to where they can run almost a full version of the game, so why not develop and move it over? And if you think about it, Bungie has at least been trying to push some of the boundaries with Destiny 2. I mean, it showed up on Stadia pretty quickly, and it was actually a very good version of the game, all things considered, for it being through streaming. I also saw some people wonder if this could maybe mean, a Switch version would happen. I mean, anything's possible now. I mean, we always say, this game can't go to the Switch, and then it shows up for the Switch randomly, like The Witcher 3 as an example. So I know Destiny in general is a very large game when it comes to the file size. It's always online, and it's basically a first-person shooter MMO. But like I said, never say never with the Switch, because when you do, the next Direct, the game just randomly pops up. Next up, let's talk about Cyberpunk 2077, which out of the gate on release was basically a disaster. I mean, it really hurt CD Projekt overall when it came to the value of the company. Even though they still sold 13 or 14 million copies, like almost right away, we saw some of the damage it did to their reputation. And I mean, they got pulled from the PlayStation Store at one point. So it is a big deal all the way around for CD Projekt and CD Projekt Red. But with the latest release of Cyberpunk Edgerunners, it seems like a lot of interest is coming back to the game itself. We can see this posted up over on Twitter from Cyberpunk 2077 saying, each day of this week, Night City has been visited by 1 million players, both new and returning. We wanted to use this opportunity to thank you for being with us and playing the game. And the interesting thing about Cyberpunk 2077, it's in a much better state now than it was when it released, and this does seem like a good time for people to come back to it or check it out for the first time. And Cyberpunk Edgerunners, I mean, critical acclaim across the board. I still need to check this out. This is on Netflix, so over the next couple of days, I'll at least dive into it. I think it's like, what, 10 episodes or something, so shouldn't take too long to get through, but everyone who's watched it has, I mean, raved about it online. And seeing them say 1 million people coming back to the game, new and return, I mean, that's a big deal. I also noticed Bungie over on Twitter said that Cyberpunk 2077 has had a higher peak concurrent players every day on Steam this week. So we do have concurrent player counts on Steam, you can see, and these are just people logged in all at once, not necessarily for the entire day. So, I mean, Monday through Thursday, it continued to climb, which most likely just more and more awareness after Edgerunners popped up. And if you go to Steam, they do have a top sellers list that apparently is tracking in real time now. And I mean, we can see Call of Duty Modern Warfare 2 is at the top. Makes sense. Call of Duty is Call of Duty. But look at number 4. Cyberpunk 2077 went on sale at $30, and it's jumped up the chart tremendously. 35 spots, actually. And I'll admit, I thought it would have taken longer for Cyberpunk 2077 to make this kind of a turnaround, but hey, if you have a really good show to put out there like Edgerunners, yeah, it'll get people interested in the world of Cyberpunk again, or for the first time, and they'll even check out the game itself. And this isn't the first time this has happened for CD Projekt, by the way, because when The Witcher show came out, we saw Witcher 3 sales spike heavily, and now Cyberpunk 2077 being mostly fixed up, at least to a much better spot than it was, like I said, when it first released, and then going into next year with the content update, big expansion being added there, they're actually in a pretty solid position now. So again, surprising stuff. I thought they were going to be on more of a path like we saw with No Man's Sky, but Edgerunners must have been that good because it's managed, so far at least, to turn around Cyberpunk 2077. So we'll see what happens for this game heading into next year when they release their big content update. And in our last bit of news, let's talk about the Famitsu Sales charts. These are the sales charts in Japan that are tracked week to week, and I want to take a look at the week after Splatoon 3 just to see where things were with it after its massive sales for its opening week. Let's head over here. We can see at the top 10 for the game, Splatoon 3 is still number 1, 506,000 copies. That's a 74% drop, but typically we see large drop-offs after a game's opening week, but still pretty good. I mean, most games would love to open at 500,000 copies. So Splatoon 3 still rolling along strong, coming up on 2.5 million copies sold in Japan alone, physically, by the way. So yeah, moving along really well. But then I saw the next 3 spots. Dragon Quest X. This is the offline versions. We have the Switch, the PS4, and the PS5 in that order, with 143,000 copies selling on the Switch, 48,000 on the PS4, and then 28,000 on the PS5. I would like to see this game get localized and brought outside of Japan. I understand there's still updates apparently they're going to be doing to this version of the game as we go along, and maybe they will get to that point. But the fact that it's offline now and not an MMO, I'm hopeful, because this is a game I would like to check out. Mario Kart 8 Deluxe, then at 5, then we have Nintendo Switch Sports, Trinity Trigger, Minecraft, Kirby and the Forgotten Land, and then Super Smash Bros. Ultimate. Moving over to the hardware, the Nintendo Switch at the top, 127,558, and then look at this, the Xbox Series, 14,000 2,077. And the Xbox Series S, by the way, was the big mover at over 13,000 units sold. Apparently, there was some sort of deal or sale that was going on with Microsoft, some sort of promotion to move these units, and it certainly did, because then we see the PS5 below it, 11,180. This, by the way, I believe is the first week or so where the PS5 had its price jump in Japan, so we'll see how that affects things going forward here. And then we have the 3DS with 29, and then there were 12 PlayStation 4s found in the back somewhere. But overall, a pretty good second week here for Splatoon 3 with 500,000 copies sold, and Dragon Quest X offline across all platforms there, getting over 200,000 copies is great. I'm very hopeful that they do have plans to localize that outside Japan. With these kind of sales, let's take Dragon Quest X worldwide. We haven't seen it outside of Japan at all, so I'm at least crossing my fingers for that to happen. And then the Xbox outselling the PS5 here with that big promotion for the Series S, and I'm really curious to see how the price increase will affect the PS5 going forward, but I guess at least coming up, we do have several releases from third parties that'll give us an idea if those releases can push a more expensive PS5 there in Japan. And before we go to the comment of the day, we're gonna take a look at the poll that I posted up yesterday, where I ask, do you play games on your cell phone? Hey, 10% said yes, I play games on my phone quite a bit. 39% said yes, but only if I have to fill time somewhere, and then 50% said no, I don't play games on my phone. So that means, okay, so we're 50-50 on this. So at least 50% of people here who voted in this poll do at least play phone games somewhat. And I think of phone games still as like time wasters. I'm not sitting there for hours on end playing any different game like a Call of Duty Mobile or any of these gacha games necessarily. I think some of the gacha games can be fun if they're like time wasters. Maybe you're hanging out somewhere and you're just you don't have much else to do. You have your phone. Okay, I'll check out the Fire Emblem or whatever else there. But I'm still wondering if we will ever get to a position where, yes, phones will continue to evolve over time, technology will get better, and we're starting to see these larger scale games like your Call of Duties, like Rainbow Six, like The Division, find their way to these systems. But will they ever be to a point where, okay, that is your main platform, is a cell phone for gaming? I don't know, I still question that, but who knows what the future holds. And we'll finish up with the comment of the day, as you're seeing here. This is from Rajan saying, totally agree with your point about the RX 480. We seriously need a modern day version of that GPU, a graphics card around $250 or less that can play modern games, no problem, at 1080p, 60 FPS at least, and maybe some light 1440p depending what sacrifice to visuals and or performance you're willing to make, along with modern features like AI upscaling. I know people usually look at those terrible, like cheap cards, the 1030 or something like that. I did like that budget-oriented range when it came to pricing for these cards, like that RX 480. And I think it'd be interesting to see these companies battle it out again at that point, but NVIDIA seems dead set on the $900 to $1,000 and up price point for their video cards. So I wouldn't mind AMD showing up with their $250 or $300 card during their conference and just say, hey, we do have something that's budget-minded. It's not necessarily a card you have to take out a second mortgage to get or something like that, because it was always fun to see what these companies could get out of $200 or $250, because we all know that they're going to get some really good performance out of $1,200, but what could we potentially see out of $200 or $250? So we'll see if AMD has anything on that end. I'm thinking they're going to show up with cards that are priced a little below what NVIDIA showed off, and they'll talk ray tracing and 4K and for some reason even 8K. And ladies and gentlemen, that's gonna do it here for Newswave. If you enjoyed this video, guys, hit that like button. If not, hit the dislike. Leave comments down below about everything we talked about here today. It was the Super Mario movie. We'll apparently hear something about it one way or the other, whether it's people's opinions coming out of New York Comic-Con, or who knows, maybe just a full-on trailer drop a little after that. And then also, what about Cyberpunk 2077 seeing a very quick turnaround due to the Cyberpunk Edge Runner show? Thanks guys for watching. Have a great weekend. I'll see you back here Monday morning, 8 a.m. Eastern time for Newswave.